Hey, how's it going, everyone? This is Faceless Opinion, and I don't have a clever intro. So for today, I'm gonna make another video where I talk about my personal experiences. Think of this as a sequel to my I Hate Kroger video. If you've never watched it, I recommend listening to it. It was quite popular, but it is not required reading for this video, though it will be in the same vein as it because I'm gonna talk about my time in retail as a whole. Because let me tell you, retail is awful. I already talked about the horrors of Kroger, so I'm going to talk about the place I worked at after that. That, of course, being Academy, sports and outdoors. Now, let me preface one thing. I didn't hate my time at Academy like I did at Kroger. As a matter of fact, I kinda liked it. But just because I said I like it does not mean that I enjoyed myself or that I would want to do it again. Yeah, no, I'm good. I'm finally free from having to deal with the hassles of retail, and trust me, there were plenty. Now, I had plenty of experiences at Academy since I worked there for, how long was it? I want to say it was 16 months. So basically a year and some change. For my job there, I mainly worked in the apparel department. I worked with clothes. Putting stuff on hangers, folding, maintaining the fitting room, getting the returns, which there were plenty of. Trust me, all of that is as monotonous as it sounds. Especially after you fold a big stack of shirts and literally less than 30 seconds later, someone comes and starts undoing your pile to look at them like, ooh, what is this? I mean, seriously, people, you look at stuff with your eyes, not your hands. So you can see that I, along with the other apparel department members, can get preoccupied, always having to maintain our area, which is quite huge as it takes up the majority of the store. To give you an idea of how big our spot was at our store, picture a big rectangle, then draw another rectangle inside of it. That would be the entire apparel department. Now, with an area of that size, you would assume that we would have a fair share of people in the department maintaining and dealing with returns. Well, you'd be sadly incorrect. We never have enough people. Only one person opens. Sometimes you'll have someone in a midday shift, but not that often. Then we get the closers, which is normally just going to be 2 people. Sometimes we will have 3 people closing, and if we are very extraordinarily lucky, 4. But most of the time it's going to be 2, meaning that 2 people have to work fixing up all the displays, clearing out the fitting room, and dealing with returns, as well as dealing with any and all customers, whether that be them finding and approaching us, having to answer the phone, or having to go up front to do a price check. It is borderline impossible to fix all of apparel, and that is not even going onto the outside factors like what day it is, or the time of year, weather, holidays, deals and offers, people calling out sick, blah blah blah, etc., etc., etc. Basically, working in apparel is a lot of work, so much so that we never truly get our zones 100% done, mainly because there's so much to do. Gets to a point when we close, we have people from other departments help us zone, and we don't leave until like an hour after we close, if not longer, because the managers want a good zone, even though there are only 2 people in apparel proper to do zoning. It also doesn't help when we get called out of apparel and have to do something else altogether, like having to be a backup cashier whenever the lines get super backed up, which happens a lot. Or how one of us needs to get up front to the podium and basically stand up front by the door and have to be a greeter because the person standing there is going on break or is going home, and you have to stand around until someone comes relieve you. Or having to be extra muscle to help a guy load a grill or some exercise equipment into a truck. Let me tell you, that can be a pain, not because it is heavy. If you have enough people, it isn't that big of a deal, but those grills are hard to get a really good solid grip on them. Or the fact we can get dragged into doing another department's work. For example, I have had days where I've had to end up having to be a cashier for the whole day. Or I've had to go over to footwear since they have no one working in that area, or having to do online orders, even though I've never once done online orders before, and I had to get a crash course on what exactly I needed to know what to do and how I was doing it. I got hired to do one job, not all of them. So let me work in my designated spot. I hate it when that happened, though I shouldn't complain too much since a friend of mine got it a lot worse. Let's call him Dungeon Master. since me and him talk about D&D a lot. Yeah, that happened to him a lot. I swear, I have a better chance of finding Bigfoot than I see Dungeon Master actually working in apparel. They always have him working the online orders. Believe me when I say we were overworked, underpaid, and never appreciated. As much as I will gripe about all the long, grueling work I've had to do, and for the long hours I had to work, the thing that irked me the most out of everything I had to do while at Academy was being forced to get customers to apply for the Academy credit card. Let me tell you that the Academy credit card is a blatant ripoff. It doesn't provide very much of nothing, really. All you really get is $15 off on your first purchase when you apply, and 5% off on all future purchases, as well as getting free shipping. Yeah, not really worth opening up a credit card to a store that most people might not frequent, unless you're an avid hunter or into fishing. But the managers were adamant about us wanting to get those credit cards, whether on a register or through text to applies. At the store I worked at, it was located in a small town, and that population has around what was the population? Like 12,000, give or take a few hundred, around that ballpark area. So you're going to have a hard time trying to get a large number of credit card applications coming in per day. If you were in the big city, you could probably convince some schmuck into applying into one, but small towns, yeah, good luck with that one. Everyone who wants the Academy credit card has it already, and the only people you can probably convince to get one are either people in their early 20s who don't know any better, or the Mexicans. Alright, that one may come off as a little racy, but the amount of Spanish-speaking people who have the card is rather high, and are the ones who more often than not apply for it. But those managers were relentless when it came to trying to motivate us into getting those cards. They would try to offer prizes like giving us candy or offering to buy the person who gets the next card by the end of the hour a soda or some nonsense like that. I know one managers would always get annoyed when we don't reach our supposed quota. Let's call him Sarge, since he always came off as a drill sergeant, and is also a veteran as well. Well, Sarge would always give us group meetings at the end of the night whenever we were closing, where he would say we did awful in credit and gripe about it, so much so that me and another coworker turned Sarge's speeches into a drinking game. We did awful in credit. Take a swig. It is your job to get us cards. Take a swig. You need to be zoning throughout the course of the day. Take a swig. Alright, everyone, get out of my house. Alright, that last one is my favorite line of his. Though they aren't any better when we do end up getting cards. They would always get a bit overly excited and annoying with it. Like some of them would even end up singing the Baby Shark song over the radio. You know, Baby Shark doo 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 doo, Baby Shark doo 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 doo, Baby Shark doo 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 doo. Ugh, I hate having to deal with that crap. In my entire tenure at Academy, I have only gotten 3 cards. 2 through the register and 1 through text to apply. And I want the record to show that the only reason I got those cards was by sheer luck, because I never once asked people if they wanted to apply for it, because there was nothing in it for me. Something that I say often enough to my other coworkers is, unless I am getting a commission or get to go on a hot date, I am not going to shill out for the Academy credit card. Now, when it comes to the people I worked with, surprisingly, I did not hate anybody. Now, that does not mean that I was buddy-buddy with everyone, as there were some people who I did not care for, either because of their personality or their overall work ethic. The majority of people I will talk about will fall into the latter of the two. So, who do I want to start off with? Oh, I know, I'll talk about the guy who used to work in footwear. Let's call him Gingy, because he is a redhead. About Gingy, simply put, the guy was an asshole. Nobody really liked him, as he was one of those types of guys who'd like to poke fun of and rile people up, then will be like, it's just a joke, dude, and he would do that to everybody, present company included, as he would always like to say, look at Faceless, he got noodle arms. Personally, I did not care, as my general philosophy is that if you want to rib me and make a joke about me, fine. Keep in mind, it goes both ways, and I'm not afraid to shoot back. One night when we were closing, it was me, Gingy, and another guy. I don't remember what his name was. We were all helping the front end with some stuff. The other guy was eating some beef jerky and offered some. Gingy declined because he doesn't like eating spicy food. For context, the jerky was very peppery, and it had a little kick to it, but not enough to merit it as spicy. And I nonchalantly said that Gingy was a little bitch. something in a not so serious tone, I was ribbing him like he does to others. And let me tell you something, he got butthurt about that. Started calling me fuck nugget, and that went on for like almost 2 weeks straight. I just no-sold his insults and doubled down by calling him ginger bitch. However, each time he saw me, he kept calling me nugget, and I think I even said to him at one point, Gingy, get some bitter material, cause you're repeating the same line over and over again. But yeah, he likes to dish it out, but when it's dished out on him, he loses his mind. Talk about having thin skin, but he would end up quitting sometime after that. And no, it wasn't because of me. He got a different job, and I'm pretty sure nobody missed him. Alright, next person I feel like mentioning, let's call her Podium Girl. Mainly because she works at the podium and is basically the store's greeter. Honestly, I never understood why we needed a greeter, especially from what I heard that there are some academies out there that don't even have one, but we've had at least 3 people at one given point to man the podium. 2 of the 3 I do like, one of which is a really good buddy of mine. I will call him Mr. Podium. He, as well as the other person who works at the podium, would get annoyed with Podium Girl, as she would always show up late, causing the 2 of them to having to wait for her to show up so that they can go home, which kinda sucks since if you are up front, you can't straight up and leave and not until somebody comes to relieve you. I can understand that being the point for cashiers, but that should not be the case for people at the podium. No one gives a crap about the podium. No offense, Mr. Podium. So yeah, she would always be late by like 15-20 minutes. Then when she does show up, she would always talk to the managers and be like, I don't feel too good. Can I go home? And they let her go. And she does that all the time. Then when she is actually here, she just complains the whole time. Like, what do you have to complain about? You have the easiest job in the store. Granted, it is the most boring and useless, hence why I nicknamed it the Island of Irrelevancy, but still, all you have to do is stand there, say hello, hand out a flyer every now and again, and answer the occasional question a customer may have. That's it. You can't even do that. Then she asked the managers if she could change departments, and guess what? She gets moved to apparel, and I was the one who had to teach her how apparel works, what you need to do. Then 2 days later after I trained her, she straight up quit. Talk about a waste of time. I swear, in every workplace, there's always going to be that one person who sucks at their job, but surprisingly has not been fired. Podium Girl. Prime example of that. But not the only person that would apply to as well. There was another person who I would say this applies towards as well. Let's call this one no call, no show. She was a cashier and I would say is worse than Podium Girl. Evident by her name, you can tell why I call her that. She blows off work and never calls ahead to say that she's not going to be there, which in turn causes issues. I remember one time I was opening and she did not show up, and I was the one who had to take her place as a cashier, and I was relegated to being a cashier until another person came in. Let me tell you, it is a load of BS having to cover and do the job of someone else. Feels like I'm being punished and I didn't do anything wrong. And the few times she actually does call out and let people know she's not going to be at work, it is never her who actually calls. Supposedly, from what I've heard, it was either her mom, her sister, or her friend who calls in for her. You are 20 freaking years old, and you're having your mommy call your job for you? I'm sorry, but that's pathetic. Okay, maybe that's a little harsh, but whatever, I don't care. One last person I feel like I want to mention in this is someone who actually works in my department. Let's call her Snapchat, because she is always on it. She was probably the one who I worked with the most often, and when it came to her, it felt like I had to do all the work, because she was either on her phone, using the restroom, or talking to her bestie over in footwear. Whenever she was doing stuff in our zone, I had to help her. I think all like, faceless, I don't want to work, can you help me zone women's? And I helped her, because I don't want to stay over an hour and a half after we close having to do more work. Now, don't get me started with all the high school drama she brought along with her. We can be here all day, but I will give a brief rundown. She talked about the sex life of one of our colleagues, mentioning how he lost his virginity. I'm not sure why I needed to know that. Then she wanted me to keep track of a guy who she thought was her ex because she didn't want to run into her. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. It was just some random guy that she made me try and pester. Oh, And she also tried to get someone fired by having a friend of hers, and I think her cousin as well, call the store to file a complaint about someone she knows and has really bad blood with. I don't remember the reason for their feud, nor do I know if she ended up getting that one chick fired or not, as I left shortly after that happened. Yeah, let's just say I knew some very colorful people. Now, it is time for the part in the video that I feel like everyone was wanting me to get to. And that would be all the crazy stories that I had while at the mystical land known as Academy, Sports and Outdoors. Believe me, I have had a wide variety of tall tales. Where do I begin? I can talk about how disgusting the fitting rooms can get. I can't preface how often to you I have seen people leave behind their socks or their nasty face masks. I mean, how do you even forget those? But that is not the most disgusting thing left in there. As the most disgusting thing left behind, from my experience anyways, would have been when a woman who I assumed just had a pedicure because she was wearing one of those pink grip things that they put in between their toes. What are those called? Well, whatever they're called. Yeah, she left those behind in the fitting room. That is disgusting. I had to use a pair of short hangers to dispose of those. But yet again, I had someone throw up in the fitting room, and some of that puke got on the clothes they were trying on. And guess who had to dispose of that? At least I didn't have to clean up the room itself. Though with all the gross things that happen in those rooms, the big thing that takes place there and across apparel itself would have to be all the theft. Our department is a hotbed for all the shoplifters. The number of times where I've found busted open packages for knives, ammo boxes, and empty shoe boxes, or how when I put my hand in pockets of shorts or pants, I get stabbed because someone removed the sensors and hid them in a random pocket. It had gone so bad we have to keep a big bag we have in the fitting room to store all the sensors we find, and that thing is always overflowing. I remember one time I was walking back to the fitting room, and the moment I turn the corner and enter, I see a woman come out of a room with a handbasket full of clothes, and tags were scattered all across the floor of the room she was in. We just looked at each other, and without saying anything, she just put the basket of clothes on a nearby table and walked away. So yeah, I unintentionally stopped a shoplifter. Yay! Now, when it comes to retail, at some point you have to deal with a Karen, and I did when I was a backup cashier. This rude lady came into my line, and keep in mind my light was off. I was not taking any customers as I was counting money at the time. She said she wanted to return something, and I told her I was closed, but there were other registers nearby that were open, and they didn't have any lines. But she was like, "Can't you do it?" At that point, I was like, screw it. I did it, and I did the return. I just wanted to get it over with. But I did the return, and I handed her the receipt, and she started griping that she wanted an emailed receipt and did not want a paper one, and started lecturing me. I just responded with, okay, gave her the paper receipt, and left. I mean, seriously, who gets this bent out of shape over an emailed receipt? This isn't an online order. And no one has time for you to put in your long-ass email address and watch you misspell it like 4 times. Just take the damn paper receipt. Christ, it's not the end of the world. Remember earlier when I said we were often overworked? When it is the holidays or during the World Series, we get packed. You end up getting shifts that go into the double digits. A few days before my last day, I ended up working a 14-hour long shift. Yes, starting from 10 a.m. all the way until midnight. Though originally, I was only supposed to work until 8 p.m. However, 2/3 of the closing crew called out due to the weather since it was supposed to be storming, and I was asked to stay later, and I decided, you know what, F it, I'm doing the long haul. So I chose to stay for 4 more hours, and keep in mind, this was like 2 days before Christmas, or was it 3 days? Now, many of you may think I might be insane to do that, since I already put my 2 weeks in, and my last day was the day after Christmas. Easy reason. All that money I was going to be making. Not to mention, I just solidified my legacy by becoming the Iron Man, the MVP. And guess what? The managers agreed, and I was rewarded. I got a free jacket that I could pick out, which I still have today. In their eyes, I was always one of the more dependable ones since I never once called out or skipped work. Which was the case when someone in my department ended up getting fired and I inherited all of their shifts. Talk about a weird segue. though the reason for the firing is a little baffling. The person who got fired, let's call her Waterball, because she would always leave her water bottles all over the fitting room. But the story on how it was told to me, Waterbottle was working at the sunglass counter, and she accidentally pocketed one of the glasses and took it home. Next day, she tells the managers about the whole thing and returns the glasses. Then 2 weeks later, she ends up getting fired for it. Now, that is rather confusing. It would make sense if after she took the glasses and returned them, she was fired for it. That would make sense. Or if she did not tell them about the glasses and they ended up finding out and fired her 2 weeks later when they found out, that would also make sense. But firing someone 2 weeks after the fact is rather confusing. Then you have alleged stories in which the manager who fired Waterbottle was smirking while walking her out of the store. I don't know. No, all I know is the manager who fired her went up to me after it happened and said, "Faceless, Waterbottle no longer works for the company. Would you be interested in picking up some of her shifts?" As shocking as her firing was, I took her shifts. I mean, it's not like she was going to need them. She was a cool person to work with, but it's not like I could do anything to help her, which sucks, but it is what it is. Now we get to the interesting part that I am sure people are curious to know about. Were there any ladies I had a thing for? Yes, 2 actually, and oddly enough they had the same name, which is why I call them Ghost 1 and Ghost 2. And telling from those names, you can figure out why, because you are a rather intelligent listener. But let's not jump ahead. Starting with Ghost 1, or the Ghost of Footwear as we will call her, me and her would talk quite a bit, and she would always inquire about how it was going with me looking for a new job, since I told her I was doing some schooling to get a certain type of job, which I am currently working as right now, and I ended up getting it. Though she would end up going to university downtown, leading to her taking a reduced schedule, and it was only a matter of time before she ended up leaving properly, which she did. But I did express my interest with her and told her to hit me up when her schedule clears up because, university, you get it, it gets busy. Though I never did hear from her again, but I'm not that mad about it since she was trying to become a doctor and that was going to take up a large amount of time. So as much as it sucks, it is what it is. I don't hold any ill will towards her. I get it. Then we get to Ghost 2, or the Ghost of the Front End. She worked as a cashier and we ended up talking. At first I wasn't really looking for anything since I was still a little glum about Ghost 1, but as time passes, things change. I even had Mr. Podium serve as my wingman since he knew about it, which I want to say thank you, Mr. Podium. You are a true homie and I still owe you for that. On my last day, I went for broke and asked her out. She said yes. Though when I messaged her later about when we could make things happen, she said she was going on vacation that week, which surprised me since she never mentioned that beforehand. But we can do the date afterwards, not a big deal. But I never heard from her again. Not gonna lie, that hurt a little. I went from being on cloud 9 to face planting. From this point onward, I'm not gonna seek relationships at the places I work at ever again. Though, I do have a funny little tidbit about a small running joke in apparel where one of the mannequins was my girlfriend. Allow me to explain. From time to time, you may need to take something off of one of the mannequins because a customer wants something it is wearing. Whenever I went to help a customer with that, it would always be the mannequin in women's Adidas. And I would have to take off the mannequin's leggings. More often than not, it was always the leggings. So yes, the women's Adidas mannequin became my girlfriend. I called her Addie. I think about her sometimes. The only woman that ever treated me right. I love you, Addie. Where am I going with this? It has been 5 months since I left Academy. I got a new job and I'm very content with where I am currently. Do I miss Academy? Honest answer, not really. Not because it was a bad place to work at, significantly better than Kroger. It's just that why would I want to go back? From what I heard, it has gone downhill a little bit after I left. A person I've been keeping in contact with who still works there told me some stuff. Let's call my informant Panera Bread, since I remember him running into Panera Bread and the memory is ingrained in my mind. Panera Bread works in team sports, and he told me that they really cut his hours and that they did not have him work for like 2 weeks straight. So they're always understaffed because of hour cuts, or the new people they hire don't last very long. Yeah, I am glad I left when I did, but it had its moments, like meeting some cool people, like Dungeon Master, Panera Bread, and Mr. Podium. I know that Mr. Podium is interested in wanting to do some YouTube, but hasn't had the time to do anything with that. Hit me up. I will edit some videos for you. It's the least I can do. And speaking of YouTube, while working at Academy, I met a dude there who was a YouTuber who also worked in apparel. You know what? I'll give him a shout out right now. Check out Let's Get Adam Reviews. He makes videos where he reviews movies. If that's something you're interested in, check out his channel and tell him that I sent you. With that said, I believe it is time to wrap things up. Comment down below what you think of my retail stories. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like and subscribe. Until next time, I will catch you all on the flip side.